The hour before dawn breathed cold against the silent stones of Winterfell, and Bran Stark sat alone in the godswood, with the ravens perched like black fruit amid the frosted branches. The moon still hung, thin and aching, above the keep's ancient towers, but he felt time itself flex around him, an immense fabric stretched taut by countless distant yesterdays. Beneath the heart tree, the carved face wept red sap, and in its bleeding eyes, Bran glimpsed the swirling greens and whites that marked the doorway to other days. There had always been voices in those eddies, murmurs of long-dead kings, distant battles, the crack of a falling tower. Tonight, though, the murmurs sharpened into a single iron-edged certainty. He could go back before the wound that never fully healed, before Robert's hammer shattered a royal crown and flung the realm into generations of quiet bleeding. He had traveled rivers of memory often enough, wearing the shape of a waiting wolf or an ancient raven, but always as a watchman, never a true player. The three-eyed crow had warned him, touch too much, and the past slithers away like water cupped in trembling hands. Yet Bran knew water could carve mountains if it flowed long enough. And a child of Winterfell could carve too, if he dared. His chair's iron wheels dug furrows into the thin snow as he rolled beneath the weirwood's arching boughs, bowing his head until his forehead brushed the tree's rough, bleeding bark. The sap smeared cold across his brow like a knight's anointing oil, and suddenly the world folded. He fell through time instead of air, glimpsing spinning constellations of years, towers rising, walls crumbling, snow-melt swelling rivers that would one day run with blood. The roar of the trident thudded in his ears, mingled with the screams of Elia and her children, the cries of Lyanna dying alone in a tower's round chamber, Ned's voice raw with sorrow. He heard Robert's hammer crack ribs, saw Jaime's sword flash red across a mad king's throat. He tasted ash as King's Landing burned under Eris wildfire caches. All of it collided in a single pounding instant, then dissolved, leaving only a gentle song carried on summer wind. Rhaegar's harp on the grass at Harrenhal, silver strings dancing beneath his pale, slender fingers, while Lyanna Stark watched from the shadows and forgot how to breathe. Bran fixed on that note. A pivot in the realm's great wheel. That was what Bloodraven had called nodal moments, points where a single breath could shift the orbit of dynasties. The music was one. He willed himself toward it. Stark bones had always bent toward duty, Targaryen blood toward destiny. Somewhere within that dance lay the path to peace. If he could draw a new shape, nudge one heartbeat, perhaps the realm would never need to bleed so deeply. And so Bran slipped into the rising sap of the weirwoods, riding its hidden veins like a river seeking its first spring. He emerged beneath moonlight again, but the sky was younger, emptier of crows. He felt grass against bare feet, not cold iron of a cripple's chair. The scents were new: green apple, distant lilac, horse sweat, wine. Yet memory told him where he stood, the edge of Harrenhal's godswood on the night of the false spring tourney. Lanterns shimmered by colored pavilions on the far shore of the lake, and in the castle's vast shadow lutes and pipes, jostled for place with drunken laughter. Nearby, a lone heart tree loomed, though its face was cropped and half-healed from some earlier axe wound. Bran's hand, small, smooth, unscarred, rested against it. He gasped. He was in a body, not a bird or whisper. A living boy. Bran thought 12, maybe 13 features half familiar. He could taste the tang of new teeth behind his tongue. Whoever he wore, the skin fit like fresh gloves, snug but pliant. This had never happened before. The power here throbbed heavier. The past was nearer, pliable, the tapestry's thread not fully matted by history's grime. Voices drifted across the water, noble knights boasting, squires giggling, and one song among them all, soft but piercing. The harp got all. Rhaegar's fingers coaxed a tune that felt written for the bone marrow of every person who heard it. Bran's borrowed lungs clenched. He followed the melody's silver path through drooping willow boughs until torch glow washed over a small clearing. There, beneath a bone-white ash tree, stood Prince Rhaegar Targaryen, moonlight kissing hair the color of hammered platinum. His violet eyes were far away, fixed not on his audience but on some bright ruin, Only he could see. Beside him, Lyanna Stark shivered in a cloak half slipped from her shoulders, her hand pressed to her mouth as though to keep from screaming. Bran stepped onto the lawn. The grass crunched faintly beneath his borrowed boots, yet the noise rang louder than a siege horn. Rhaegar's gaze snapped up. The song died mid-note. Lyanna turned, startled, her gray eyes flaring wolf-bright. Bran's heart slammed. He needed words. Something to mend, to redirect. Yet how could he speak ancient secrets without scuttling everything? Too many names and futures perched like sparrows on a single phrase. So he knelt. It felt right. A humble motion that transcended words. Rhaegar's jaw tightened, suspicion tempered by princely grace. "Who are you, boy?" he asked, voice a drawled chord of formal Valyrian edges smoothed by the common tongue. Bran's mouth opened, but the truth would burst worlds. He bowed his head deeper until his brow touched dew-damp soil. The scent of fresh earth anchored him. "I am a singer of another song, my prince," he said finally, choosing each syllable with the care of a man setting stepping stones over a flood. "And I come with a warning hidden in the wind." Lyanna's cloak whispered as she stepped forward. "Are you some fortune-teller?" she asked, half mocking but not unkind. Stark steel usually rang blunt, but the faint quiver in her tone betrayed a heart too open for Winterfell stone. "Not a teller," Bran murmured. "A rememberer." He lifted his eyes. Tears burned unshed. "I remember flames eating children. I remember a river choked red with broken dreams. I remember towers falling like dice spilled by capricious gods. And all of it begins with a song on a spring night when a prince crowned a wolf girl queen of love and beauty." He did not need to explain the rest. The prophecy of ice and fire, whispers of the prince that was promised, were fetters Rhaegar already half wore. The silver prince's face drained pale as milk. His harp slipped from numb fingers and struck the grass with a muffled twang. "You speak treason," he said, but only as one reciting a line of a half-forgotten play. Lyanna inhaled sharply, clutching the cloak tight around her slender throat. Somewhere behind them distant trumpets beckoned revelers back to feast, yet the clearing felt sealed in glass. Bran forced himself upright. "Not treason. Mercy. You look east and see doom swelling like a storm under black wings. The dragon must still wake, but wake different in sunlight, not wildfire. Crown flowers tonight if you must." He nodded toward the floral chapel where Rhaegar would soon place a garland in Lyanna's lap. "But let the realm see it as homage to the North's honor, not a declaration of love the South will mistake for abduction." His voice trembled. "Do not steal the wolf, my prince. Invite her, and invite the stag too, and the lion, and every bird singing in these trees. Share the prophecy openly before courtiers twist it into knives. Promise Lyanna's hand to no one but herself. Let Elijah sit beside you when you sing of winter roses. If you must topple a father's crown," he whispered, "let it be heiresses alone, and let it be with counsel, not steep." He had said too much. Bran felt time ripple, a hot gust across skin. Visions flickered. Rhaegar kneeling in blood, Robert roaring his grief, Catelyn's tears on a red wedding night. Then flicker, flicker, like a dying hearth spark. New possibilities budded. Raggy raising, a council of great lords, Lyanna riding next to him as emissary rather than prize, Robert offering loyalty instead of wrath. The threads danced, tangled, yet no single path settled. The choice still teetered. Rhaegar bent, retrieved his hob, and brushed dust from carved silver filigree. "If I heed your words," he said slowly, "I must defy my father's demand for heirs and denounce whispers already slithering through court." Lightning flashed along the lake though the sky was clear. A temporal tremor Bran sensed more than saw. "But if I ignore them, you promise rivers of fire. Which doom shall I choose?" "The one that leaves children breathing," Bran answered. Lyanna's hand touched Rhaegar's forearm. Bran recognized the moment Robert had always feared, the spark that would one day ignite a continent. But her fingers only steadied him. "Elia is kind," she said, "and I am no queen. If prophecy says winter roses must bloom, let me plant them in Dorne's warm soil, not in stolen bedchambers. She looked at Bran, eyes shining. Can the future truly bend? It bends every heartbeat, Bran said. I only show you where the stone cracks before the avalanche. Rhaegar closed his eyes. When he spoke again, his voice was softer than drifting ash. Then let us prop up the mountain, rather than dance beneath its fall. He turned toward the torches by the tourney field and squared his shoulders. Come, Lyanna. You shall be Winter's ambassador, not its captive. They strode past Bran, leaving him alone amid fireflies. The past's air changed. All around, campfires guttered as though someone had opened a door onto outer dark. Bran felt his borrowed chest burning. The weirwood's heartbeat thundered against his mind. He stumbled back to the tree and pressed his palm against its hacked face. Sap dripped onto the grass. He had nudged a stone. Now he must see if the avalanche halted. Again the world folded and spun. He rose through years as though born on weirwood sap, glimpsing scenes diverging from remembered fate. Lyanna visiting Sunspear with Ned as escort, exchanging riddles with Oberyn Martell across garden fountains. Rhaegar returning to the capital, not with stolen bride but with a sealed pact binding North to Dorne through shared guardianship of prophecies, child yet unborn. Robert Baratheon choking down jealousy yet calmed by Jon Arryn's counsel and honored invitation. Yet fractures remained. In King's Landing the Mad King paced red-veined corridors, paranoia gnawing deeper. Varys whispered of plots. Pycelle soothed with sweet-scented lies. Jaime still heard wildfire talk echo under the throne room vaults. Bran sensed danger coiled there, thick as autumn frost. If no rebellion came, would Aerys birth his own doom instead? The avalanche might yet crash from another slope. Bran tore onward. He was in King's Landing on a heavy noon, the sun bleeding white over marble towers. The royal procession returned from Harrenhal, banners snapping, armor glinting. Rhaegar's stallion shone silver, his scarlet cloak trailed. Elia rode beside him, thin but radiant, children perched giggling upon her lap. Rhaenys flung roses to the crowd. Baby Aegon waved pudgy fists. Behind them, Lyanna rode astride a gray mare. The city buzzed, but did not snarl. Still, Bran felt dread pooling in shadowed alleys. He cast his mind toward the Red Keep. The throne room stood cool and dim. Columns rose like forest trunks. Aerys sat upon the iron throne, fingers twitching, muttering about betrayal. Small council members formed uneasy knots. When the great doors boomed open to admit Rhaegar, silence cracked. Bran hovered behind a lantern, unseen but present. Rhaegar knelt. "Father," he said, voice echoing, "I have returned with news that will shape 7 kingdoms." Aerys leaned forward, rust-tipped fingernails scraping blade-edged arms of the throne. "You left against my command," he croaked. "You consorted with traitors in their gloomy wolf den." Saliva flecked his beard. "You would see me usurped." "No," Rhaegar said, rising. "But prophecy is as real as steel. Ice and fire must marry in truth, not secret. I will found a council of regents representing each kingdom, to guide succession and keep peace." "Nine." "Council?" The word dripped venom. Aerys laughed, thin and shrill. "A council of vipers to rob me of my dragons." The room tensed. Jaime's hand drifted to sword hilt. Varys' eyes glittered like coins. Bran felt the cusp again, the precipice that might birth new slaughter. He needed one more nudge. He poured himself into a nearby raven, perched high on a beam. The bird fluttered down and landed on the throne's twisted barbs beside Aerys. The king flinched, glaring at the black creature. Bran cawed, feathers bristling. The sound echoed, hollow and doom-laden, through marble vaults. Every gaze followed that omen. Aerys' pupils shrank. Fire had always danced behind them. Now a flicker of fear surfaced. Fear, Bran knew, could tilt a man faster than rage. Rhaegar seized the moment. "Father, will you see omens everywhere and strike at your own blood?" He spread his hands. "I would heal the realm, let me. Name me Prince Regent that I may prepare for the darkness coming from east and far north." Aerys' breath rasped. The raven hopped once more, claws clanging loudly on iron. The king jerked, as though pricked. Then, impossibly, he sagged. "Regent," he whispered. "Yes, Regent may rule in my name, while I consider truths shown me by fire." His gaze burned wild, but something had broken. Perhaps the awareness that every eye in that cavernous hall now saw his terror laid bare. The small council exhaled as one. Rhaegar bowed, silk cloak pooling. "Then let us begin a new day," he said. The words, light as dust, shifted mountains. Bran felt it. The tapestry threads tightening into unexpected weave. The rebellion was unwoven. Yet the future remained unfurled. He withdrew from the Raven, leaving it to squawk dumbly, and drifted upward through vaulted ceilings into a sky deepening toward dusk. Years flowed once more. Small skirmishes stamped flat by diplomacy, marriages rearranged, trade pacts signed. Ned wed Catelyn still. Bran caught a glimpse of his young mother laughing at Riverrun under lantern-lit trees, but he returned north sooner, unblooded by war. Robert remained Stormlord, hunting boar and wife, both in vain yet comforted by Maya Stone's bright grin. Jaime resigned from the Kingsguard with honor, taking his place as heir to Casterly Rock under a charter guaranteeing Lannister coin to royal coffers. Tyrion found tutors who fostered brilliance instead of shame. Across the sea, dragonfires still smoldered, but Targaryen ships did not rattle the stepstones. The long night yet brewed beyond the wall, and Bran sensed white shadows stirring sooner. Perhaps drawn by imbalance of conflict postponed. He anchored himself at Winterfell in the 7th year of Rhaegar's regency. Snow drifted soft along ramparts. Wolves howled content in the godswood. Ned sat by the hearth reading Ravens from Court, relief easing lines that war would have carved deep. Jon Snow did not exist. No war, no Tower of Joy. Yet Bran felt a phantom ache for the brother never born. Lyanna dwelt as royal envoy in King's Landing, a free lady of her own household. Whispers gossiped she might wed Lord Robert after all, forging frost and stormside into single gale. Yet time kept secrets behind frosted panes. Bran's own younger self toddled nearby, unaware another Bran watched from unseen vantage. That duality sparked a sudden tremor in the loom of time. Two Brans in one age. Too close. Nature abhors paradox, too. He felt his borrowed presence begin to unravel. Threads frayed. And across the realm, other ripples formed. White walkers roaming farther south, unchallenged by dwindled night's watch. Dragons beneath Dragonstone restless, sensing destinies denied. Eras, locked in Maegor's holdfast, stoked fires of new madness. Wildfire casks multiplied under Red Keep. Though Rhaegar reigned gentle, old embers smoldered in the dark. Bran understood then. Mending one wound could open another. A tapestry too neat leaves threads taut enough to snap. He must plant stronger defenders, not merely stop swords. The song of ice and fire still demanded chorus. Perhaps different singers, but voices nonetheless. He returned to Winterfell's Godswood to whisper with the heart tree of ancient magics. He guided Ned to fortify the watch with grain and gold, urged Maester Luwin through dreams to seek dragon glass quarries, and sent ravens south bearing cryptic verses that lured Rhaegar scholars to Old Town's high towers, where hidden records of the long night slumbered. He coaxed dragons to hatch under controlled hands. Prince Aegon bonded with a pearl-white hatchling named Heartflame, and little Princess Shira with twilight-blue Dawnwing, forging Targaryen power tempered by youth, unscarred by conquest. Yet still, every time Bran stitched, new rents appeared. Tywin Lannister's pride, bruised by Jaime's resignation, festered into silent plots. Varys shifted alliances, seeking chaos he might ride. Dorne's nobles, though appeased, grumbled at northern influence over royal policy. And under the world, the great over's whispers grew loud, promising winter eternal. The wheel could be broken, but only if replaced by something stronger than spoked wood. Bran realized then the true lesson. Time's river cannot be dammed by one stone. It must be guided by a garden of channels, each bending current with subtle grace. He could not remain in this era forever. Two Brans could not share one breathing world for long. but he could plant enough seeds before departing. He wove himself into dream conversations with Tyrion, urging compassion for small folk, with Lyanna urging alliance with Robert, forged on mutual respect, not passion, with Jaime urging vigilance against wildfire caches. He visited Aerys' fevered dreams as a silent elk, standing between king and fire, coaxing the old man to fear conflagration above all. Seasons rolled. Peace lingered fragile yet unbroken. Crops flourished, without raiding armies to trample them. The faith militant never rose. High Septon danced at baptisms of new dragons. In the far north, giants and wildlings found their numbers swelling, culled by war. Mance Rayder, still a brother among black cloaks, carried songs of treaty across frozen hills. Yet the Night King stirred. Bran tasted his frost breath on each winter breeze. A god-sleeping evil cares nothing for shifting crowns. It wakes to hunger. At last the weirwoods called Bran home. The paradox of his dual existence frayed dangerously. He saw glimpses of young Bran stumbling, hearing whispers inside walls, glimpsing half-shadows that were himself. He must retreat, or risk shredding both. He returned to the Harrenhal clearing one last time. Dawn-stained lake mist rose gold. Rhaegar stood again, older now, tunic of black velvet. A small dragon perched on one mailed pauldron, its wings iridescent in first light. Lyanna approached in riding leathers, at her side a boy of about 6, Ensward Ben Frey called him, though Bran sensed Robert's blood behind brown curls. Lyanna's gaze met Rhaegar's, and though fondness glowed, it held no heat that could kindle war. Nearby, Elia laughed with Princess Shira as she coaxed the hatchling to chase sun motes. The realm had bent, not broken. Bran stepped from willow shade. Rhaegar recognized him, though the face he now wore was older than the boy from years before. The prince inclined his head. "Singer of another song," he greeted softly. "Will this verse please you when the ending comes?" Bran smiled, though sorrow pricked. "Endings are beginnings slipped inside out," he said. "But guard your counsel, my prince. Winter's mouth still opens." He nodded at the dragon perched upon Rhaegar's arm. "Teach him to breathe more than flame. Teach him mercy. You may need both." Lyanna knelt so the boy could study Bran's weathered boots. "You look tired, sir," she said. "Rest in Winterfell if you travel so far." "I am already there," Bran answered, truth layered in riddle. "And I soon must go farther still." He bowed low. "Remember the river's gentle bend." Then he closed his eyes and let the weirwood draw him back into present flesh. Night enveloped Winterfell's godswood once more, but not the same night from which he'd left. Owls nested where none had before. Moonstone statues lined cloister walks built in peace years earlier. Bran's crippled limbs still lay slack, yet inside he felt stronger, anchored by roots stretching across altered histories. He rolled his chair back and found Maester Samwell reading by torchlight upon a new-built bench. Sam looked up, eyes wide behind round spectacles. "Your Grace," he said, half awed. "The Citadel's latest raven. Prince Aegon's fleet sails north bearing dragon glass and white steel at your command. King Rhaegar's own spears ready to stand with us at the wall." Bran exhaled, hard easing. "Then the board is set." He looked at the stars wheeling overhead, constellations subtly shifted. Somewhere beyond the trees, direwolves howled welcome to dawn. The rebellion was undone. War may still come, but with stronger shields and fewer ghosts. Bran folded hands in his lap. "Let the long night come," he murmured. "We are ready." Snow whispered against the ramparts of Winterfell, scouring the fresh-carved crenellations Samwell had admired beneath the torches. Dawn's early ghosts seeped over the palisade, turning each fresh plank of the outer ring wall pink in the half-light. The new defenses, twice the height of the crumbling inner curtain, rang with hammers and saws as blacksmiths from Molestown labored beside rivermen from White Harbor. Bran felt their motions as faint tremors through the weirwood roots. Shafts of living purpose, radiating out to join the wider lattice of preparation he had spun across half a continent. Inside the great hall, torches smoked over long trestles lined with jars of pickled beetroot and barrels of hard winter apples. The last provisions before the harvest wagons must be sent south to the wall. 2 score mothers and graybeards diced out ration tokens under Lady Sansa's quiet supervision, their voices hushed by the knowledge that dragons could arrive any day with stores of dragon glass to trade for northern grain. Sansa moved among them in wolf and crane grays, quills twitching across her ledger. She had grown into a presence as steady as granite, but Bran could feel the churn of old memories beneath her calm. Ghost echoes of a world that had never happened yet still tugged at her heart, like the trailing ends of a dream. Somewhere in her marrow she sensed that once she had traveled south a girl and returned shattered. Here, she managed only the faintest unease whenever ravens mentioned King's Landing. The rest had been sanded away by the changed shape of time. In the yard, Jonos Bracken sparred against Sir Roderick Castle's pupils, with bright new practice axes of castle-forged steel. Bracken, an envoy of the Trident, had ridden north to pledge men and mules for the wall works even before House Frey signed Ned's revised River Pact. Though the smirking twins of the Crossing had sent their own grudging levy of masons, they had failed to secure the reward they once craved. Catelyn's cousin Enid had married Brynden Tully's son Edwin before Walder could bargain a grandchild into Winterfell's lineage. Some slights transcended timelines, Bran mused. A fray would remain a fray, whatever thread the fates spun. Bran watched through the tower window as Arya guided a new group of kennel pups across the muddy bailey, teaching them to heel beside Gendry Baratheon's fresh-planed trebuchet frames. The Smith Prince, still no High Lord, though Robert now named him openly as Blood, had answered Lyanna's summons at Storm's End, riding north with half a forge strapped to his wagons. He worked best where wood and iron met, and soon his mangonels would hurl dragon-glass barrels over Wintertown's outer moat. Should white shadows press that far south? Gendry's laugh ripped through the thin air when Arya's stern command sent the smallest pup tumbling over its own paws. That laugh, Bran sensed, bound him tighter to Arya than court betrothals ever could. A single stroke of the dawn bell called the keep to Congress. Bran allowed Podrick Payne to push his wheeled chair from the maester's tower into the Sunstreak yard. Podrick wore maester green now, a copper chain marking years of ravenry study. In the other world he would have died screaming in a Step Street riot. Here he greeted Gendry with a grin and scrawled a note on parade inventories, while 2 ravens beat upward from the Rookery Arch, bound for White Harbor and Castle Black. Southward, the wall itself crackled beneath the last fingers of autumn chill. Eastwatch's new cranes groaned as cargo nets of purple obsidian clinked against rough pine struts. Maester Aemon, his shaking hands steadied by Samwell's herbal draughts, supervised as recruits stacked the shards into sealed stone coffers. Among those recruits marched wildlings in black cloaks, the first true free folk brothers in living memory. They chiseled runes of mammoth horn onto each crate, markings they claimed would sour the White Shadow's appetite. The old Order of the Watch had railed, yet Lord Commander Benjen Stark had stood beside Mance Rayder before the council fire and asked a single question: will these men bleed before the wall falls? When Mance roared aye, and the forest echoed with free folk chanting, the matter had ended. Bran glimpsed all this at once, shifting from raven to wolf to silent weirwood sap every time a heartbeat threatened paradox. He straddled now and later like a huntsman walking 2 parallel banks of the same black river. Bloodraven had warned that such double vision risked drowning a mortal mind. But without it, Bran could never stitch the 1,000 tiny seams that kept this new piece from unraveling. One seam, though, puckered deeper than the rest: King's Landing. Aerys' madness had quieted under Dreamwine and Grand Maester Connington's silk-tongued stratagems, but quiet did not mean gone. Bran felt wildfire caches multiplying inside the Hill of Rhaenys like viper eggs. Worse, Varys' silken whispers twisted through those tunnels. In the world Bran had abandoned, the eunuch manipulated chaos toward the return of a hidden dragon. Here he had no exiled queen to champion, yet he still served shadows. And shadows knew patience. Bran hovered inside one of those caches. The night Varys met with Tywin Lannister beneath flickering torches. Sweat gleamed on Tywin's broad brow despite the damp chill. 18 green jars squatted between them, viscous light slurping against obsidian-corked mouths. "The king rots," Tywin said, voice iron and vinegar. The realm rots with him. You placed Rhaegar upon the council to slow the collapse, but cracks widen faster than we can mortar them. Mandarantan. Varys lifted one tiny hand, nails lacquered obsidian dark. Collapse into order is still collapse, my lord. I cherish order as you do. I need only the right bones for the new foundation. His eyes shimmered. Bones we might stack after the proper blaze clears the rubble. Tywin's jaw clenched. I am no arsonist. No, Varys agreed softly. You are a builder. Builders require land clear of weeds. He traced a sigil in the dust between two jars. Lion's head crowned by flame. Whatever grows afterward must answer to Casterly Rock. Tywin's silence glimmered like a drawn knife. Bran retreated from the shadows before the conversation sealed in whispered pact. He tasted sour bile. Varys' aim had never been prophecy or heritage. He nourished the dream of a realm remade entirely by his own symmetrical design. Wildfire was his straightener's rod. If Bran allowed that rod to strike, all threads would snap. So Bran bent his mind elsewhere, across the sea, where one final shard of Targaryen ambition lurked unchanged. In Braavos, a girl named Visenya, daughter of Aerys by a Lysene paramour, had come of age among the Iron Bank's marble pillars. She whispered of birthright to exiled cell-sails, braiding pale braids into dragon tails with each new loan contract. Braavos had always entertained pretenders, so long as interest accrued. But the Iron Bank now felt pressure. Rhaegar's trade reforms made Westerosi coin less vulnerable to Braavosi leverage. As debts dwindled, the Iron Bank needed new ways to pinch a dragon, and Visenya's claim offered leverage. Bran guided a rook across the narrow sea, perched atop the Moonpool's high lintel, and heard gold-clipped tongues discussing war loans keyed to wildfire dividends. He tasted Braavosian sea wand laced with hubris. Thread by thread, the web tightened. Varys and Tywin with wildfire, Iron Bank with Visenya, all while the dead marched beyond shivering sea mists. To win the coming dawn, Bran must stamp these embers out before they ignited into a conflagration even dragons could not drench. Yet time pressed iron thumbs against his temples. Every great working exhausted him more quickly. When he slipped back into his own body, sweat iced on his neck, vision dulled to gray blotches. Podrick dabbed his brow with warm pine-scented cloths. You must rest, your grace, he begged, eyes wide with worry. Bran forced a smile. So like the innocent boy Podrick in another life, yet hardened here by the weight of maesterhood, and asked to be wheeled to the bell tower's ramp. Outside, a pale sun hovered. Bran breathed winter air smelling of smoke, pine, and distant dragon flame. Against the crimson gold drift of dawn, black sails pricked the northern horizon. Rhaegar's fleet. Bran watched the triangular wings creep closer and felt hope spark, but also dread. Wherever dragons passed overhead, the world below changed forever. 3 days later, silver trumpets screamed across Snowbloom Plain as the dragon Heartflame, now horse-length and thick as 3 men, wheeled above the flotilla's encampment. Below the beast's lazy circles, 1,000 sailors erected billowing purple tents, trimmed with martel copper. Dornish griffins lounged beside Northmen bearskins over blazing cookfires. Slow-stepping gray knights of House Dane drilled sword forms in the shadow of giant longboats. At their heart rose the royal pavilion, a cluster of canvas spires sewn from pale gold silk, crowned by entwined banners of 3-headed dragon and direwolf. Bran attended that parley through ravens perched on a pine sentinel framing the camp. Podrick pushed his chair through crisp sedge below. Hodor, huge, gentle, held Bran's furs against the breeze. Rhaegar emerged to greet them, violet eyes shadowed but calm. His black mailshirt glimmered with sunlit frosty dew. At his hip hung a new sword Shira had named Winter's Promise, steel inlaid with streaks of dragonglass. He knelt before Bran, not deeply, but long enough to draw curious murmurs from the Dornish guards. "Your Grace," Rhaegar said, "it is time." Time indeed. Bran studied the prince's face, searching for fissures of doubt, but saw only firm resolve. Elia appeared beside her lord, veiled in desert rose and midnight blue. The years had left her slighter, but she radiated every inch a queen, shoulders back, chin high, smile warm as hearth coal. Behind her came Lyanna, hair plaited in the northern style, a cloak of white-furred direwolf draped over supple black leather armor. She had shed maiden shyness, Bran saw, replaced by the tempered edge of command. Arya tipped a cap to her aunt with undisguised awe. Formal greetings faded, replaced by stewards trading parchment tallies, Winterfell's stores of oats, White Harbor's salted cod, Dornish casks of fire pepper to preserve beef slabs through bitter nights. Maester Sam read out Castle Black's last raven. Scouts spotted White Walkers testing the wards at Icemark, half a league farther south than the worst year of the Old Man tales. They murdered 3 free folk before Benjen's patrol drove them off with flaming javelins. The old commander's letter dripped urgency. Need dragonglass arrowheads. Need dragons. Need hope. The council darkened. Lyanna unrolled vanished chalk maps of the gift, each red X marking a wildling clan sworn but undersupplied. Each blue circle, a holdfast, still doubting treaty terms. Rhaegar traced a route of provisioning caravans, using horse teams Heartflame could scout overhead. Sansa suggested rotating the shelter tax so no single holdfast starved itself bare. Arya demanded they dispatch roving ranger packs with direwolf companions to flush whites before they massed. Bran listened. Then he spoke. "We will hold the wall at Icemark," he said, voice carrying beyond the war table. "But that is only the fist at the door. The Long Night's true assault will come not against stone or ice but flame. King's Landing." Rhaegar frowned. "My father." "Your father's vaults hold wildfire enough to drown 7 kingdoms," Bran cut gently. "Varys seeks those flames to clear soil for his own realm. Tywin Lannister stands tempted to let him. And across the sea, the Iron Bank grooms Visenya for the throne. Unless we act now, our war will have 2 fronts, ice in the north, fire in the south, with the realm consumed in between." Gasps rustled. Elia closed her eyes. Lyanna's brows knit taut. Rhaegar pressed gloved hands against the map like a man steadying a spinning plate. "You foresaw this?" "I taste its edges," Bran said. "Paths converge too neatly. War loves symmetry." Sam cleared his throat. "Then we must break symmetry." "How?" asked Gendry, arms folded, soot smudging his brow. Bran turned to Hodor and Podrick. "Fetch the chest," he murmured. They returned dragging an iron-bound coffer. Bran unlatched it. Inside lay a row of dragon egg shards no larger than a falcon's egg, each black-green vein pulsing faint embers. 6 fragments, Bran said. "The 7th was forged into my father's blade ice. A mage-smith of Loreth split these from the mother egg centuries ago. But fire can still quicken within them, if nourished rightly." Ning. The tent hushed. Rhaegar reached with reverent hand. Shira, trotting up behind main guard, peered wide-eyed at the shards as they puckered warm light. Bran continued. "Heartflame and Dawnwing are not enough to scour an undead horde. We need more dragons, but not only war beasts. We need torchbearers who can circle the realm swiftly, burying dragonglass, healing frostbite, warning of breaches. Each shard can birth a swift-winged wyvern, smaller than a true dragon, but faster than ravens, and more fire-hardy than men. If hatched in shared pools of ice melt and volcanic glass, they will answer not one but many riders." "Da," Elia breathed, "a flight of living torches." "Yes," Bran said. "And we will gift them not to crowns or castles, but to the Watch." His gaze found Benjen's scribbled plea pinned under Sam's fingers. "Every strong arm at the wall shall command flame." A hush. Then the tent erupted with voices. Caution, wonder, doubt. Lyanna argued weight of supply lines. Ned quietly backed the idea, but crunched numbers of goat herds needed. Rhaegar traced a timetable aligning egg incubation with the next blood moon. Sam volunteered recipes from Ashai treatises. Bran leaned back, letting them shape logistics. His part was vision. Theirs would be craft. But one man spoke not at all. Jaime Lannister. He had arrived 2 nights prior, dusted with half a continent's road, golden beard untrimmed. Now he stared at the shards, jaw set, as though each ember flickered by the reflected flame of a future he feared. Bran met his eyes and read the truth behind his stillness. Wildfire, always wildfire. Jaime carried the memory of Aerys's rants more intimately than any man alive. Bran nodded a silent promise. I see your burden. When the council dissolved at dusk, Bran asked Jaime to walk with him to the lake, where Heartflame's reflection danced. Hodor wheeled him along reed-lined shore. The Kingslayer strolled beside, helm under his arm. When the Night King comes, Bran said, steel alone cannot hold him. Yet I sense your fear lies south. And Jaime kicked a pebble into the water, watching ripples blur dragonlight. The Mad King whispered of burning cities long before your warnings, he said. I slew him once to stop it, if your spider fans the same fire. He broke off, gripping his sword belt. I cannot let the realm doubt a Lannister's word again, yet my sister rules Casterly Rock under lion banners married to Targaryen stars. Father courts wildfire. I stand alone. Not alone, Bran answered. A raven settled on a cattail. Through its eyes, Bran watched Jaime's face soften. Ride south with Maester Sam. Show the small council proof of Tywin's scheme. Bring the shards of new growth. Let them see flame harnessed to light, not ruin. They will judge Tywin then. And if they choose wildfire, then, Bran said, we will have 2 wars, and you will again stand with fire behind you and children screaming in front. Only this time, he looked toward Heartflame circling overhead, you will not stand alone. Jaime's breath misted. A new resolve squared his shoulders. He nodded once and walked back to camp, the last sliver of sunset burning gold across his armor. The egg fragments went to Dragonstone on Rhaegar's swiftest warship, the Sea Lance, with Prince Aegon and Princess Shira guarding them. Grand Maester Connington selected 3 Night's Watch veterans, Cotter Pike, Daenerys Mallister, and Ygritte Snowghost, first Free Folk Ranger, to swear the old vow, to accompany the clutch for hatching. The choice outraged half the lords at court, but thrilled the Street of Silk, where broadsheets lauded the first union of dragon and crow since Valeria's fall. Dragonstone's smoking caldera glowed orange during incubation. Forgemasters carved basalt baths, lined with dragonglass gravel. Maester alchemists brewed brines of crushed pearl and obsidian dust. On the 13th night, Heartflame descended screaming onto the battlements, Dawnwing trailing azure flame behind. At their roar the shards split, spilling molten gold that coalesced into 6 sickle-winged wormlings, no bigger than mastiffs. Their eyes brimmed twin colors, one iris midnight, the other dawnfire, as though each carried the balance of ice and flame in a single stare. When the hatchlings fell upon their first goats, entire rookeries reeled at the psychic echo of hunger. Bran, even leagues away, felt teeth pierce his own guts, then felt them calm when Pike, Mallister, and Ygritte placed soot-scarred hands on scaling necks and whispered the watch's vow. The wormlings settled, coiling tails like content cats. Across the world the weirwood net thrummed, a new chord added to the old song. But chords draw ears. In the crypt beneath King's Landing, Varys' urchin spies shivered under damp ceilings as wildfire jars trembled without touch. A sigil of 3-eyed raven appeared in one crack of green glass, a hairline fissure that shouldn't exist. Varys knew then that someone, somewhere, tugged strings older than his webs. He redoubled efforts. Tywin signed secret manifests channeling Lannister gold to the Iron Bank, purchasing fleets ready to deposit Visenya. Upon Storm's End, once Westeros tore itself between Night King and Wildfire King. Cersei, wed to a Hightower cousin in the New World, discovered her father's maneuvers and wrote frantic letters to Jaime. Father madness. Stop King's pyre. The wall's winds howled sharper. Whites probed again at Skirling Pass, this time led by a horn-helmed giant whose blue eyes shed frost vapor. Tormund Giantsbane clove the creature apart with a dragonglass axe, but its torso crawled for hours by its own will, scribbling runes in the snow that burned like hoarfrost fire. Benjen sent Raven to Winterfell. None of our tales warn of runework. The walkers change. Bran read the missive and felt time accelerate, like a river cresting floodbanks. The game had narrowed to endgame squares, north, south, and the unseen rook crossing sea. He had one last sewing to do. He called Podrick, Sansa, Arya, and Lyanna into the library, dim under oil lamps. Bran rolled maps across the oak table. "We strike 3 fronts in concert," he told them. "Ned leads grain convoys to Icemark under Dragon Guard. Arya and Gendry escort Jaime south with sworn blades and proof of wildfire treachery. Lyanna sails east on the Laughing Wolf to Bravos, to cut Iron Bank lines before Visenya's fleet departs." Sansa raised her quill. "And you?" "I remain," Bran said. "My place is the Roots. When the Night King faces our walls, I must be here." Lyanna bristled. "You cannot stand alone." "I will not be alone," Bran smiled. "There is another I must meet, one I lost when we unmade rebellion." Eyes bright, he whispered. "Jon's echo walks the deep snows. I can call him home." The long night chose a moonless eve to descend. Clouds the color of lead stacked above the wall. Frost so thick it cracked stone crept over the ramparts despite fire baskets roaring. Benjen Stark paced along the battlements, gloved hand caressing dragon-glass arrow shafts. From the watchtower he saw torches bobbing across frozen wastes, wildlings and rangers forming a staggered screen ahead of the main gate. Dragons Heartflame and Dawnwing circled above like red and blue comets, smaller wormlings flitting between them, dispersing flocks of dark-winged bats that braved unnatural cold. Bran woke beneath the old heart tree in Winterfell, skin slick with sap-tinged sweat. The weirwood's eyes glowed with their own inner moonlight, bleeding scarlet tears onto Bran's cheeks. Podrick had placed a brazier of pine behind the chair. Its smoke curled around Bran's legs like protective serpents. From that chair Bran stepped out of flesh, into the branches, into the wind, and then into the white. The Night King stood alone on a rise of blue-whorled ice, half a league north of Icemark. He did not need armies now. He carried winter itself in his bones. Snowflakes halted mid-fall around him, suspended on the hush of slumbered gods. His eyes mirrored no stars. They were voids. Yet Bran saw deeper, where a sliver of Stark blood still glimmered like a speck of embers at the bottom of an inn-old hearth. The ancient pact between man and winter, that had birthed this creature, lay cracked, but not extinguished. Bran reached. The Night King felt him and raised his spear. Symbolic gesture from a being beyond symbols. Behind him wights assembled. Bears spined with icicles, giant elk stripped to sinew, men with antlers of frozen blood. They parted as the Night King strode forward. Bran poured thought into the snowmelt. "Remember who you were. Remember, Bran the Builder's promise of dawn after darkness. Remember, hearth smoke in deep winter." The void eyes narrowed. Bran sensed recognition like a knife's kiss. Then the Night King flung his spear, a shard of black ice shimmering with stolen stars. It arced impossibly swift, slicing sky. Heart flames swooped, jaws roaring and intercepted. Spear met flame. An explosion of steam thundered canyon loud. Heart flame tumbled, one wing trailing shards frozen mid-flap. Cut. Ash and rime spattered the wall in streaks. Screams erupted. Rangers loosed arrows of obsidian, bolts of star iron. Dawnwing descended in a scythe of blue-white flame, carving whites into shattering sculptures of ice. But more poured from boreal blackness, an army without end or fear. Bran's mind strained, tethered at once to dragon, tree, and his fragile body miles away. He reached for the wormlings. They rose like meteors, spitting spirals of rainbow flame onto the front ranks. Ice exploded into billowing fog tinted rose and violet by the unusual fire. Yet the Night King advanced. Every step sprouted ice fissures, freezing fire before it spluttered. Benjen called retreat to the second ring. Cotterpike lit signal kegs under the first bridge. Dragon glass mines erupted, flinging shards that embedded in undead flesh and continued to burn. One mine burst near the Night King himself. Shards lodged in his breastplate, sizzling, but he tore them free with contemptuous flick. Bran saw Heartflame struggling upright below, wing membranes riddled with spear frost. He guided the dragon through threads of weirwood energy. Encouraged, it rose again, belching fire newly tinged purple, where dragonglass blood boiled inside. The Night King halted, head cocked. Purple flame ate at his mantle, slower than blue frost but steady. He hurled a second spear. Heart flame dodged, tail lashing whites into powder. Dawn-winged dove, claws cracking ice along amethyst-broiled wounds. For the first time, the Night King retreated half a step. Hope surged. But far south, wildfire lit the night. Arya's column had reached the King's Road only to find it aflame. Lannister outrunners in red cloaks galloped past, torches raised. Jaime spurred his destrier alongside Arya. "Too soon," he hissed. "My father moves faster than ravens." Behind them wheeled carts of burn salts, wildfire's priming agent. If those reached the city, one spark could incinerate half King's Landing. Arya signaled Gendry to fan left with the vanguard. She urged the Nightglass Wolf pack right, circling to cut the supply lines. Jaime raised horn to lips, 2 blasts for parley. The Lannister riders slowed, confusion rippling. Arya vaulted from horseback, blade needle glimmering. She walked toward the captain. "Ironbank note or wildfire, choose," she called. "Choose whether your grandchildren breathe." Most soldiers had never seen a Stark this far south in winter furs, lined with direwolf heads. The captain wavered. Then from the rear came Tywin himself, steel-crowned helm etched with rubies. He dismounted slowly, gaze sweeping Jaime, Arya, then the burning cart. "Children breathe," Tywin said flatly, "when their elders crush threats before they grow teeth. This realm is weak, dragon dreams and wildling treaties. Did you see the whites at the Trident?" "I did. Fire will end them faster than swords." "And the small folk?" Jaime asked, voice hoarse. "Ash cannot grow wheat." Tywin's eyes hardened. "Wheat means naught if the dead harvest souls." He waved a gauntlet. Archers knocked. In that instant, Gendry's trebuchet prototype launched from treeline. A keg of sticky shadow gum smashed into a wagon wheel, upending burning salts. Fire leapt. Ding! Wildfire caught the cart tongue, then the oxen yokes. Green conflagration whooshed skyward, forcing archers to scatter. Tywin cursed. Arya sprinted. Needle flashed, hamstringing one guard, then another. Jaime closed with his father, Valyrian dagger drawn, the one Bran had seen gleam across decades. Tywin parried with longsword. Steel rang, sparks hissing. Jaime pressed. "End this, father." Blow after blow forced Tywin back toward the inferno's green bloom. From the blazing wagon toppled a ruptured jar, viscous jade fire pooling. Tywin's boot heels slipped, he went to one knee. Jaime's blade halted at his throat. "Yield," Jaime said. Tywin's face twisted, not fear, but wounded pride. Yet behind that pride flickered revelation. The world had moved past him. He lowered his sword. Arya kicked it away, bound Tywin's hands. Fires consumed the supply train, but Gendry's crews rolled sand barrels, smothering flames before they marched into the forest. Jaime sagged, staring into burning green reflection in his father's eyes. In Bravos, Lyanna knelt before Ironbank magisters, dragonstone letter of marque in hand. She spoke of undead armies and wildfire threats. The Bravosi clucked tongues, unconvinced. Loans were contracts. Dead men paid no interest, but burning cities freed collateral. So Lyanna offered a counterweight. Dornish cinnamon mines profits underwritten by Winterfell grain surpluses, guaranteed by dragons transporting spice west twice yearly. A new silk and snow treaty, profit for peace. Several magisters scoffed. But one, a gaunt woman named Kalyanna, saw the margins. She pressed wax, stamping the treaty. Funds diverted from Visenya's war chest. Her mercenary admirals deserted by morning. The would-be queen found her fleet impounded. Her fury shattered 6 glass goblets, but the Iron Bank answered with only one phrase. "The loan is called in." Without coin, without ships, Visenya's claim evaporated like sea wind over the black water. Another ember quenched. As wildfire carts died and Iron Bank treasuries turned, the Night King's assault reached crescendo. Bran felt the shift. His allies had pruned the southern blaze, but here at Icemark, frost deepened, pressed against every soul. Heart flame bled fire from wing wounds. Dawnwing shrieked, tail shredded by broken ice pikes. Wormlings darted frenetic, wings icing over between spurts of flame. And still, the dead climbed. Bran opened wider. Memory flooded him. Robb's bannermen charging green fields, Hodor holding a door, Jon Snow crying, "Duck!" On Craster's slope, phantoms of the old world, each bearing lessons in courage and sacrifice. He fused them with new memories. Aegon lifting Dawnwing's broken tail from ash. Ygritte gripping a wormling by the scruff while slashing a wight's ankles. Sam reciting vows to shattered bones. He called the name the world had never given breath. Jon. From weirwood roots surging under the shivering sea, another soul rose. A child of ice and fire that never fully existed, but whose possibility Bran had protected like coal and snow. The nameless echoes of Rhaegar and Lyanna mingled in frost whisper, shaping themselves into a young man walking from fog, astride a pale stag. He bore no bastardy, he wore no crown. He was simply the realm's promise made flesh. A bridge between worlds denied. The stag halted beside Heartflame's wounded flank. The young man, call him Jon still, laid a hand upon scorched scales. Purple-black fire coursed, healed. Dawnwing screamed relief downstream. The wormlings clustered. Jon mounted Heartflame bareback. Flame washed his hair ghost white. Skin glowed obsidian-kissed. Bran, eyes rolling white in Winterfell's godswood, surrendered the last barriers between his power and this living avatar. The weirwood's roots cracked stone. Red sap flowed furiously. Wind howled through the keep like an organ chord. Jon raised a dragonglass spear Gendry had forged. He guided Heartflame into storm cloud, roiling above. Lightning sheared night, illuminating his silhouette, a comet riding sun. Thunder rolled, Winterfell itself shook. The Night King saw comet and hurled a third spear. Black ice forging path of certain death. Mid-air Jon twisted, thrust spear tip. Purple flame clove spear of darkness, igniting crystal vapor into 1,000 shards of star rain. Heartflame banked. Jon hurled his own spear. It entered the Night King's chest. Where dragonglass met ancient magic, the wound glowed searing violet. Cracks, spider-webbed. A sound like mountains splitting tore the sky. The Night King staggered. For the first time since his creation, he screamed. Bran poured memory into the crack, old songs of warmth, laughter under Wintertown's snow lanterns, Arya racing Rickon down moss stairs, Catelyn humming to sleeping babes. The Night King's scream wavered, became a father's sob long forgot. Frost receded, foot by foot. He dropped to knees. His whites froze mid-charge, confused. Jon landed Heartflame before the fallen monarch. He dismounted, spear glowing. He knelt. Silence swallowed world. Bran whispered from every weirwood, "Remember." Blue eyes blinked. They shifted, hue thawing from polar sapphire to watery stark gray. The giant, ice-chained heart inside the Night King fractured, spilled pale light across wind-carved plate. He looked at Jon, perhaps saw some echo of himself when he walked men's halls long ago. He bowed his crowned head. Jon lifted spear and drove it gently between cracked plates into that ancient heart. A pulse. Then the Night King burst not in shards, but in snow petals, drifting upward like farewell blossoms of winter magnolia. Each white collapsed into lifeless driftwood, empty bones, weathered pelt. The cold receded as though a door slammed on 10,000 years of night. Atop the wall, men and women stared dumbstruck, while dawn blossomed ludicrously early, rose and gold flooding black sky. Improbable, but irresistible. Dragons roared exultant. The wormlings spiraled, riding new constellations of fiery loops across fresh dawn. Mance Rayder laughed till he cried. Ed Tollett fell to knees muttering half-jokes to half-gods. Sam embraced Benjen, tears frosting on cheeks that no longer burned with wind chill. Bran slumped in his chair. Sap tears clung to jaw. Podrick leaned close. Bran whispered, "It is done." In the weeks that followed, ravens could barely flap under parchment weight. From Dorne to Bear Island, bells tolled and songs filled halls. Farmers emerged to repair fences, children to chase sheep unafraid of shadow. At King's Landing, Jaime and Arya presented wildfire manifests to the small council. Tywin, wrists manacled, faced indictment. Councillors voted to flood wildfire vaults with seawater, using chain pumps conjured by Tyrion's fevered ingenuity. The king, Aerys' wits at last eclipsed by age and dreamwine, was moved to the Red Keep's maiden vault to drift among gentle illusions. Rhaegar ascended as Peace King, crowned beneath roaring dragons, whose flames signified warmth, not hunger. Lyanna returned triumphant to Winterfell with Braavosi treaty sealed, hugging Bran so fiercely Podrick feared bones might creak. Sansa reclaimed her dream of building winter towns, Great Weavers' Guild. Arya disappeared west with Gendry to map remaining white boroughs. Jaime accepted exile to the Arbor, where he taught young knights humility amidst grapevine. Donzinger ballads hailed Ygritte, Mallister, and Pike as Dragonwatch, first riders of the Crow Blaze. Yet the greatest mystery remained: the quiet hunter who slew winter itself, then vanished. Some claimed Jon ascended with dragons into Aurora sky. Some whispered he walked out across thinning ice into a sunrise beyond mortal ken. Bran alone knew the truth. Jon returned to possibility. A shadow in history's margin, never quite born, never quite gone. An echo promised that the realm may forge heroes from dreams yet again, when darkness next gathers. Bran visited the Godswood one final evening before spring melt. Snowdrops pushed through leaf rot. Heart Tree's eyes shone calmer, sap bleeding slow. He placed a hand upon the trunk. "Thank you," he murmured. To the tree, to the thousand voices it held, to Bloodraven's fading counsel carried on the wind. Somewhere distant, a last shard of winter cracked, became water trickling under ice. Wells filled. Raven spawn nested in towers. And faint across the net Bran heard a lullaby a mother had once sung to a child beneath a tourney tent. Rhaegar's harp weaving rain and sunlight into single unbroken note. Beneath that note Bran closed his eyes. He felt time settle, threads slackening at last into a tapestry wide enough for hope to roam. No design remained perfect, no peace eternal. But the realm breathed, and children laughed, and winter's long shadow retreated beyond the farthest marches of men. That, Bran decided, was enough. Far below the jagged crown of shard white teeth, that men still called the wall, spring crept across the gift on quiet, velvet paws. Where a season earlier corpses had sprawled in iron-hard drifts, blue squills now pierced the thaw, and wolf willow shook its silver catkins in breezes scented with dragon ash and melting pine. Birds that had fled the dark returned in riotous flocks. Snow buntings and redpolls, cloud-gray gyrfalcons wheeling between half-ruined watchtowers. The world's long breath of terror exhaled at last, and with it came the labor of stitching all that fear had torn. Bran Stark watched the dawn from the highest window of the broken First Keep. The same tower whose crumbling steps had once made his childhood soar before they made his body fall. New masons from Stonebridge hammered at the staircase now, repairing each missing block with blood-red sandstone hauled from the rills. Hodor's broad shadow moved among them, ferrying cauldrons of lime mortar as easily as a girl might carry bread. Somewhere in the yard, Sansa's weavers tested the first bold scarlet pennant of the Dragon Watch, a dire wolf rampant beneath a six-pointed star of dragonglass, its thread shimmering violet where a Braavosi dyer had mixed purple orchid with molten obsidian powder. The banner was meant for Icemark, but today it hung above Winterfell as a promise. "We remember, we will stand again." Podrick draped a brindled wolfskin across Bran's shoulders. "Ravens from King's Landing, Your Grace," he murmured, setting scrolls on a small cedar table near the window. "Lord Han Tyrion writes that the second floodgate has reached the upper wildfire cellars. He expects the final vaults submerged within 8 days." Bran traced a fingertip over the wax seals. Lion entwined with three-headed dragon, then the crescent moon of Old Town's scholarly guild. Each bore fresh ribbons, sign of urgency. 8 days, he repeated softly. When that last vault drowns, the king may draw breath without tasting green smoke. "And you without tasting worry," Podrick offered, half a smile ghosting across his still youthful face. Bran returned the smile, but he could not claim the comfort. To ride time's currents was to know how swift new storms could gather. Even drowned wildfire might yet poison wells if stone cracked or pumps failed. Still, it was victory of a kind. One more thread pulled from Varys' great web of hidden conflagration. The spider himself had vanished 3 nights after Tywin's imprisonment, slipping through the same secret tunnels he once guided traders along. Rumor placed him in Lys, then Karth, then drifting on a Pentoshi pleasure barge too luxurious for any exile. Bran suspected the man had simply shed one skin to don another. We will see him again, the thought whispered. He pushed the darker reflection aside and opened Tyrion's letter first. The dwarf hand's quill-scratching leapt along the parchment. I have discovered that using Arbor White in place of beer for the pumping crews increases both song and speed. Alas, it also empties our cellars. Kindly ask your sister to send more casks from White Harbor. Cersei wrote yesterday that she can spare us only vinegar, which may explain her sour mood. On brighter matters, Prince Aegon's latest dispatch claims the wyvernlings now answer individual high horn notes. 5 blasts for Shield Wall, 7 for Flame Run. If that holds, we may discharge half the ruling council of aged grandfathers and replace them with a single able piper. God save the realm. Tyrion. Bran chuckled despite himself. Trust the imp to find music and mischief in flood and fire. He set the scroll aside and cracked the Old Town seal. This parchment bore grave script. Archmaester Marwyn to Lord Protector Bran. Greetings. Shit. Our reading of the Red Comet's sister trail confirms your auguries. The world's shadow has passed its perigee. Yet in its wake remains a thinning between skin of earth and sky, a wound through which strange birds still wing. We send 6 maesters with astrolabes north to observe the fissure beyond Skirling Pass. Prepare housing and warm charts. Also, a raven of unusual size was found trapped in the high lantern of the high tower. It bears scarlet roots sewn into its claws. We suspect your influence. Advise? Bran frowned. He remembered nothing of that giant raven, yet sometimes his wargs wandered while his waking thoughts slept. The weirwood net grew so broad now that threads tugged of their own accord. He would answer Marwyn, but later. First he must preside over council. Winterfell's new great hall still smelled of green oak and wet lime. Smoke from a dozen hearths chased sunshine up the rafters, where iron chandeliers hung draped in evergreen garlands. Lords and captains crowded the stone benches, Mormonts in shadowcat cloaks, Glover men wearing armbands of dawnwing blue, tall Karstarks recently returned from escorting wildling families to the new gift. In the high seat, Ned Stark sat calm, silver now threading his dark beard. Catelyn beside him, one hand resting upon the pommel of a carved weirwood staff gifted by the children at Shivering Forest in thanks for her work, brokering the giant's safe passage east. Bran rolled to the dais and locked wheels by his father's knee. Maester Samuel read the first petition, a request from Deepwood Motte for seeds more suited to short springs. Ser Davos, representing White Harbor, pledged 40 sacks of barley and 8 of flax. Lady Maege Mormont promised sendings of seal guano fertilizer once her fleet returned from the frozen straits. In every voice Bran heard the same undernote. We can give, the night has passed. Then Gendry Baratheon strode forward in King's Landing blacksmith browns, cheeks wind-burned from a fortnight's ride. Arya paced at his flank, wearing simple leathers and needle at her hip. She flashed Bran a crooked grin. Behind them loomed a wheelbarrow draped in canvas. At a nod from Gendry, 2 squires whipped the cover away, revealing a squat cannon-like tube forged of mountain steel reinforced with rings of shimmering dragonglass. The chamber's muzzle glittered violet, and the rear included a peculiar lattice of reed pipes. Gendry slapped the barrel affectionately. "Your Grace," he boomed, "I give you the dragon's flute." Lords murmured. Sam's parchment fluttered in his surprise. Ned rose, eyebrows arched. "Explain, my boy." Gendry cleared his throat. "I took ironborn cannon casts, lined them with obsidian slivers, and bored channels that, when wyverns blow flame down this pipe, propel a core of molten glass 100 paces. On impact, the glass shatters. Burning cold, the glass shatters. Burning cold, the glass shatters. Burning cold fire into whites the way Dawnwind's breath cut them. He knuckled grease from his beard. Figured it may pinch less dragon per volley, if we have to meet stragglers, or if, 7 forbid, more of the icy bastards ever crawl south again. A hush. Then, applause rolled like thunder. Mormont men stamped spear butts. Wildlings who had fought at Icemark loosed rebel yips. Arya bowed with exaggerated flourish, face bright. Bran tapped the rim of his chair. Can you mount these to the Night's Watch towers? With 30 more smiths and 1,000 weight of glass, aye. And if we could borrow Rhaegar's pet alchemist's perfect consistent pour temperature, we might triple range. Ned shot Bran a look that warmed with pride. You shall have whatever hands and glass you need, Sir Gendry. The realm owes you. Gendry ducked his head, ears reddening. Bran saw Arya's fingers brush Gendry's briefly. A promise of futures not yet bound by parchment, only by shared forge sweat and battlefield fire. He felt older watching them than his 16 Naaman days warranted. Strange, when one spent hours walking centuries. Sam's next scroll bore Tywin's golden seal, though the Lion's Maul imprint appeared battered, as if struck by a broken ring. Lord Tywin Lannister petitions the court of Winterfell for succor. Sam read, voice wavering. He offers a full third of Casterly Rock's treasury toward Night's Watch reconstruction in exchange for northern houses supporting clemency in his coming trial. The hall erupted. Mage Mormont laughed like stone grinding stone. Hallie's Hornwood spat. Yet Ned lifted a hand, and quiet followed. He looked to Bran. What do you counsel, my son? Bran's mind wheeled down long corridors of what if. Tywin's gold could feed 10,000 mouths. Fund Gendry's cannons doubled, yet the Lion of Lannister had bankrolled wildfire arsenals and whispered with shadows. Mercy risked new schemes, but mercy shown poorly risked cycle of vengeance. Bran breathed, letting sap scent anchor him. Tell Lord Tywin that stone may yet blunt steel, Bran answered. If he truly seeks redemption, let him stand trial first. Open, before king and small folk both. If found guilty but repentant, the crown may accept gold in lieu of head. The watch needs walls more than skulls on spikes. But justice must be seen. Ned nodded gravely. So be it. Another hour of petitions followed. Wildling elders requesting seed rights. Night's Watch begging timber. Even a Lyseni envoy offering mirrors of polished obsidian to line the new Hightower beacon. Each problem braided into another, yet solutions sprouted. The hall's air buzzed with new possibility. When the last scroll was read, Bran felt almost giddy with tired satisfaction. He dismissed counsel and wheeled toward the ramp, Podrick at rear, when Arya's hand caught his. Walk, she whispered. Bran blinked, confused. But she pressed 2 fingers to his temple with gentle firmness. The hall around them twisted, lurching between moments. Suddenly Bran was standing, no chair beneath, no dead legs numb. He wore his old boyhood leathers, feet sinking into snow. Blue twilight cloaked ruined stones rising like ribs. The broken tower of joy. Arya, though, knelt not as girl but as many-faced assassin. Her visage flickered Lyanna-like before settling back into her own. Just for a breath, she said, eyes bright. I asked the many-faced god for one kindness after we slew Death himself. To give my brother a step. Bran's throat thickened. He took one trembling stride across stone dust, then another, the phantom rhythm of lost limbs singing beneath him. A desert wind rose, lifting motes of rose-colored sand. Somewhere inside that wind he glimpsed a cradle, ghost empty. He sensed Joan's echo bowing farewell. He placed a hand on Arya's shoulder to steady himself and felt gratitude flood him so hot it nearly scalded. Thank you, he breathed. For a heartbeat he felt he could leap, climb, soar down those old stones as once he had. But the wind changed, cold creeping. Time tugged tight again, the gift spent. He sagged. Arya's strong arms caught him before the darkness tilted. When Bran's eyes opened he was back in his chair, Podrick fretting, Gendry offering water. Arya leaning silent, unsmiling but fierce. Bran managed a nod. Well, Only far traveled. No lie. That night Bran dreamed of the children. He sat beneath the weirwood arch at Willow Lynn, sap pooling, moonlight spilling across roots that curled like albino serpents. Leaf, silent for many moons, appeared beside him, face ancient with leaf-green cracks. "The song quiets," she whispered in her rust-petal tongue. Ice and fire no longer war, so root and branch must choose new tasks. "What will you weave now, little greenseer?" Bran considered. "Peace," he said first. But peace too often bred complacency, and magic starved in silence. "Knowledge," he amended, "so men remember why they must guard the dawn." Leaf's bark-thin lips curved. "Then remember the guardians who came before." She led him to a pool dark as space. Reflections rippled. A tall warrior in spiral bronze, eyes black as cave water. A dusky spider priestess singing serpents from green flame. A boy king in tiger-striped furs gripping a sword of no metal. Only old sunlight hardened. These carried dawnfire across the turning ages. Some were man, some neither. Their stories fade. Write them again, stark tree, else night will forget to fear. Bran woke before dawn, heart hammering. He summoned parchment, quill, ink scented of cedar. Hours passed in furious scratching. Legends half glimpsed in sap dreams spilled onto page. Tales of the Lotus Guard who held the jade shore against a tide of onyx whites. The pale tigress who bartered her unborn daughter for 5 summers of light. The last emperor of great Yitai who sang 3 moons from the sky. Each story seeded warnings of hubris, greed, but also faith. At breakfast Sansa found him, eyes red-rimmed. She read a page and gasped. "These are histories no maester claims. Yet they are true," Bran said. "We will compile them in a book of dawn for every holdfast." Sansa nodded, already calculating scribes and ink. "We may need 100 vellum presses. Then build them." And so the Chronicle of Dawn was born. Midsummer's heat lay soft upon King's Landing by the time Tywin Lannister's trial commenced. The capital glimmered new since floodworks finished. River water coursed through bronze aqueducts Tyrion designed, rushing beneath the tourney grounds to saturate doused wildfire cellars before spilling harmlessly into Blackwater Bay. Street of silk perfume almost masked the stench of long-flooded vaults. Merchants sold dragonflame candied nuts beneath silken banners of wolf and dragon entwined. Only the Red Keep still bore scars where pumps gnawed holes through sub-basements. Bran arrived by sea aboard Lassoria. A swan-proud galley Rhaegar loaned him, fitted with leveling decks so his wheeled chair rolled true even in pitch. Podrick helped him disembark onto a velvet ramp, while Heartflame wheeled overhead, now massive as Balerion of old, though Bran noted the silver streaks in its once pure red wings, a sign Dawnwind's Frostfire mating had blended bloodlines. Crowds cheered Bran, cheered Samwell, cheered Arya. They even cheered Jaime, though their roars carried undertones both amazed and wary. But when Tywin was led out in iron-shod chains, hush blanketed the square. The lion still stood proud, but prison's pall had withered him. Golden hair thinned, mouth bracketed by bitter lines. He faced a tribunal of King Rhaegar, Queen Elia, and Han Tyrion, who perched on a high dais stacked with cushions. The High Septon, the drowned god's newest orator, and a Catarian shadowbinder formed a curious ring of religious observers. Bran sat slightly behind the king, third seat of judgment, small folk whispering tree-sided king as they glimpsed his pale eyes. He tried to offer Tywin calm, but found none returned. The charges were read: conspiracy to seize and employ alchemical weapons of mass slaughter, sedition, attempted regicide, treaties with foreign banks to subvert the realm. Tywin pled guilty to the stores, but not to treason. He claimed he acted to preserve Westeros from the night king should dragons fail. Cheers and jeers rippled. Evidence spoke louder. Varys letters promising chaos, false trade manifests, barrels of salts disguised as fruit shipments. Jaime's trembling testimony cut deepest. how his father's gold cloaks had planned to ignite 9 districts simultaneously to force council surrender. Tywin's golden mask cracked only when Tyrion produced the sworn statement of Cersei Lannister, now Lady Paramount of the Westerlands. In it, she condemned the plan as a cowards, torch lit at both ends. Her absence from court screamed politics. She wrote she could not bear to watch father in chains, but her words weighed as anvils. Tywin's shoulders sagged. At recess, Bran rolled to stand by Jaime under a silk awning. "You saved more than a city today," Bran told him. "You saved your own name." Jaime turned gaunt eyes toward Heartflame circling, the dragon's shadow gliding across his gilded pauldron. "Will it matter?" he asked. "If they take father's head, I am still Kingslayer." "Kingslayer, maybe," Bran said, "but Realmsaver too." Tyrion joined them, wine goblet rattling in small hand. "Verdict's near written. Father's purse has weight, but not enough. Elia is resolved to spare his life if he tenders 3/4 of the Rock's granaries to the Watch and renounces all Westerland's claims for a generation." Tyrion's face twisted bittersweet. "Hell swallow swords first." Bran saw heartbreak behind the dwarf's jest. He placed one light hand on Tyrion's shoulder. "We will find a path. Even lions learn to build walls when cubs sleep beyond." Manmortand. When court resumed, Tywin Lannister faced his moment. He stood, eyes scanning assembled nobles. When they settled on Jaime and Tyrion together, something within him flickered. Pride struck by awe maybe, or the ancient lion stirring to defend rather than devour. He bowed, deeply, to Rhaegar, then to Bran. "I will yield," Tywin said, voice iron ground to dust. "I resign all seats, surrender 2/3 of my wealth to rebuild the North, and the rest toward an academy of warcraft, where dragons and steel may study side by side. In return, grant me exile to Lannisport and the library of my forebears." He drew breath. "Let my bones instruct future lions where pride may lead." Gasps rose. Tyrion blinked tears. The king conferred. Bran sensed consensus coalesce. Rhaegar pronounced sentence. Tywin stripped of titles, but life spared, with honor to aid reconstruction. Some called it weakness that day. Yet in seasons to come the War College of Lannisport would forge generals who tamed wyverns to yew-drawn chariots, a defense none foresaw. Snow returned 2 winters later, gentle this time, blanketing new orchards south of the wall. Bran wheeled along a log walkway above Castle Black's restored courtyard. Below, Ygritte oversaw cadets shaping lightning glass arrowheads. Wyvernlings perched on eyries carved into the wall's crest, shimmering scales shedding faint violet motes. The wall shone again, not barrier of fear, but pillar of dawnlight where obsidian veins ran like molten dusk. Benjen Stark greeted Bran with a clap on shoulder, and led him to a new lift wide enough for chair and direwolf both. In a cradle of rope, they rose, wind-whipping capes. From atop the wall, Bran saw forests stretching green and whole. Where once bones of giants rotted now, stood cairns draped in flowers. "We will always need watchers," Benjen said, "but perhaps fewer swords." "Knowledge guards as well as walls," Bran agreed. He unfolded a slim codex, the first printed chapter of Chronicle of Dawn. He passed it to Benjen. "Begin with Legend of the Jade Shore. Let each recruit learn beyond our borders." Benjen traced the embossed cover. "Stories as arrows into ignorance," he mused. "Good." A cry shattered the hush. Maester Malister's horn sounded one blast, Ranger returning. A second. Friend. Bran braced for third, but none came. Across the clearing rode Mira Reed, mud-colored cloak whipping. She swung down, cheeks flushed. "Green dreams stir," she told Bran, voice urgent. "The next black bogs birth lily lights again, sign the magic seed's new fruit. And the Crannog singers say a woman climbed from the water, skin of moonglass, carrying an egg star-streaked." Bran's blood hummed. A new egg, neither dragon nor wyvern, something older, maybe Leviathan of the deeps. Balance demanded shifting guardians as old guardians tired. He nodded. "Bring her to Winterfell," he said. "We will learn her tongue, and what tale the egg means." Years unfurled like golden banners in fair wind. Wraiths of the past remained, row warbans south of the stepstones. Carthite slavers breeding night lions from stolen wyverns. But the realm stood ready. Cannon flutes lined sea walls. Wyvern riders patrolled dusk skies. The Chronicle of Dawn, copied in low-cost leaf presses Tyrion invented, spread to free cities, then to far Ashai, where red priests debated its lessons with wind witches of Ib-Bayar. Bran faded gently from court, spending more moons in Godswood dreams than at high tables. His hair silvered early, eyes lost some mortal focus. Podrick aged beside him, faithful maester. Arya married Gendry beneath an arbor of ironwood and rose. Their twin boys raced each other atop wyvern backs before 10 Naymandays. Sansa ruled Winterfell ably, then ceded to her clever daughter Lyanna, choosing instead to head the New Weavers' Guild across half the north. One autumn, Jon's echo returned as morning mist across the Godswood pond. He knelt before Bran, silent eyes, neither living nor dead. Bran understood. The echo's purpose ended, he sought rest. Bran wove a cradle of saplight and set the echo adrift into the Weirwood's memory river, where he would drift among roots forever, a promise kept. Finally, a night came when Heartflame landed in Winterfell's courtyard so softly, not one stable boy woke. The dragon's vast eye met Bran's, where he sat alone beneath the heart tree. Dawnwing descended too, feathers of frost trembling from blue scales, isinglass fine. Between them, wreathed in aurora light, hovered the woman of Moonglass Mira had once described. She still clutched the star-streaked egg, now alive with pulsing, nebula colors. "You have mended the tapestry," she told Bran in a voice that was also wind chimes. "Yet, thread weaves endless. Will you lay aside loom, and walk the pattern inside?" Bran looked to Winterfell, home mended and thriving. He looked to the wall, watchers trained, stories remembered. He looked at his own lap, legs still limp, but no longer prison, rather quiet roots where journeys began. "Yes," he said. Podrick found Bran's chair empty at dawn. Heart trees' roots curled tenderly around twin dragon glass wheels abandoned in moss. High above, 2 dragons soared east, chasing a pale shooting star blooming violet across newborn light. Some swore a third shape traveled with them, bright as comet, small as boy, ancient as dawn. In time, bards wrote ballads of the Greenseer who healed the wound of ages, and then walked beyond sky to carry stories to realms unseen. And though centuries passed, and new darknesses gathered, as darkness must, they found in dusty libraries a thin book bound in weirwood bark, stamped with direwolf over sunrise. Its first line never faded. "Remember, so that you may stand when darkness falls. Remember, and dawn will follow." The chronicles called it Bran's gift. And so the wheel turned, softer this time, upon axle freshly oiled with story and mercy, awaiting the next child to spin it toward daybreak.